Yes. Very good.
Excellent, thank you. All right, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the East Greenbush Zoning Board of Appeals meeting of September 22nd, 2020. Begin with an introduction of our board members, beginning down on my right. Tom Hickey.
John Conway.
Bob Seward. Scott Scribell. I'm the chairman, Jeff Pangburn. We are short one member due to a vacancy, so we do have a quorum, but just for record keeping, it does take 4 votes on a 7, even though we only have 6 members, to carry any motions tonight. Also with us is our secretary, Allison Lovely, our assistant planner, Dahlia Schwarwitz, our court stenographer, Kateri Radigan, and our attorney, Bill Hesney, on my right. To review why we're here tonight, an applicant for a variance is being afforded a public hearing to appeal the decision of the code enforcement officer. The legal criteria used by the board in determining the disposition of the appeal is defined by state law, is documented in the comprehensive zoning law, and was provided to the applicant at the time of their application. Based on this guidance, the applicant is expected to present his or her case to the Zoning Board of Appeals, and then the public will be afforded an opportunity to comment on the application. We request all comments and questions be addressed to the board and not directly to the applicant. The board will then review the materials submitted as well as the testimony presented at this hearing by both the applicant and the public, and will either determine the disposition of the appeal by majority vote tonight or table the public hearing to a future date. As per town code, any member of the public wishing to speak today shall not be required to disclose his or her name, address, or any other contact-related information. We do ask that anyone wishing to speak tonight, please do step up to the podium. There's some housekeeping measures. We've all been through the screener at the front door granting access to the building. We do ask that you maintain the mask even though we are socially distanced. If you do wish to speak and the presenters, please come up to the podium. You're welcome to remove your mask at the podium and actually help our court stenographer. And we'll go from there. We also will note that over on the side wall, we do have a camera where the meeting is being live streamed on the town's YouTube channel. We appreciate your compliance with the rules put into place to keep everyone safe during these times. We'll continue to monitor our protocols and provide updates as necessary. With that, we will open the first agenda item tonight. Appeal number 2020-08, the appeal of Regeneron of 81 Columbia Turnpike, Rensselaer, New York, 12144. The applicant proposes to install 2 31.45 square foot signs on the west and north elevations of the building 85 addition, and the north elevation does not face a public road. The review of the proposed work will not comply with the following provisions of the town zoning law. Sections 2, 3.3.2, A, B, subset 3. The maximum size shall be 24 square feet. Also, the north elevation does not face a public road. Therefore, the proposed action requires 3 area variances for the property located at 81 Columbia Turnpike, East Greenbush, New York. Tax map number 155-1-4.21. For clarification, we'll get into it during the public hearing portion, but we do have clarification that we'll look for on one of the sign sizes, maybe actually be 24 square feet and not require the variance, but we'll get into that. We do have a planning board recommendation dated September 11, 2020. A motion was made that the planning board votes to accept the planning board members' report, makes a positive recommendation upon sound planning and zoning principles. That motion carried by a 6-0 vote. Within the record is the September 9th supplemental report from the planning board member that all the members received and reviewed. We also have notification of zoning review action from Rensselaer County. After having carefully reviewed the information submitted as part of the subject referral, The Bureau of Economic Development and Planning has determined that the proposal does not have a major impact on county plans, and that local consideration shall prevail. Within the packet, we have an authorization form from Gerald Underwood, giving permission to Hart Engineering to represent them tonight. And with that, I'd like to ask Steve Hart forward to present the appeal. I will note, Steve, the report that you submitted through the secretary has been circulated electronically to all the members, so is part of the record already.
Steve Hart with Hart Engineering, here tonight on behalf of Regeneron Pharmaceuticals, project manager, engineer Dave Yills. Some of the board members may know Dave from being in previous meetings. So in essence, and just a slight correction, and you did talk about the signage size there. We've got Discovery Drive sort of serpentining through the site here. We've got Red Mill Road, which is Route 151 on this side of the map, and we got 9 and 20 going up and down the page on the other side of the map. This is a larger part of the campus, the Building 85, and what we've done last year or so, put an addition. It's a 40,000 square foot addition identified as
Steve,
building
can you
20.
slow down just a tiny bit? Thanks, just a
So-
little bit, thanks.
We put an addition on the building, it's called Building 20. It's actually an addition on to Building 85. And basically, this is where we're trying to put the signs on, and I'll identify those on the mount that we have down beneath us there. In essence, we are looking for a building to be placed on the north side of the building, so that's a slight correction that we'll go over. On the north face of the building, which does face a town road, which is Discovery Drive, that sign is proposed to be 32 square feet in size, and that's larger than the code allows, which is 24 square foot. The other sign that we're looking to put on is on the west side, so if you're coming off of 9 and 20 and traveling in this direction here, you'll be able to see the sign from there. So the sign on the west side of the building is 24 square feet in size. So again, 32 square feet on the front of the building facing Discovery Drive, 24 square feet on the west side of the building, which would be facing again Columbia Turnpike. So really what this does, it just gives us a bit of an order of magnitude that also calls out the signs that we're looking at. This is the front face of the building, which is the north elevation. This is facing Discovery Drive. We've got 32 square feet on the sign. That sign is about 35 feet in the air. A standard Regeneron sign, I think you see one at Columbia Turnpike, and you see one over on a ground mount, short and low on the ground. And you see another one over off of Red Mill Road. And then on the west side of the building, which is 24 square foot in size, that's this sign right here. Again, about 35 feet in the air and 24 square feet. So the variance we're looking for that is just because there's two signs on the building, and this doesn't have frontage. North is facing on, or sitting on Discovery Drive, and the west side is not. But we are proposing a 24 square foot sign, which with respect to size does meet the code. Does that help to clarify? Yes, Jeff, as far as what I read. So in essence, and you had mentioned that this criteria here got handed out to the board. So what we try to do is just to address the 5 criteria that we look at, and also the board looks at as far as support of an area variance. So what I'll do is just read the criteria we're supposed to follow and what we felt our comment was on that. So number 1 states whether an undesirable change will be produced in the character of the neighborhood or community, or a detriment to nearby properties will be created by granting of the area variance. Our way we address that, we do not feel that an undesirable change or detriment to the neighborhood will be created with granting of this area variance. The parcel of land is situated within the OI corporate office / light industrial zone in the town of East Greenbush. The parcel is bounded on the north and west by industrial and commercial uses. The requested sign variances for an increase from 24 square feet to 32 square feet on the northerly face of the building, which is this sign here. The second variance is needed to allow for a sign to be installed on the westerly face of the building, which does not front on a town road. And again, this sign is about 24 square foot in size and about 30 to 35 feet off the ground. Item number 2, whether the benefits sought by the applicant can be achieved by some method feasible for the applicant to pursue other than an area variance. We addressed that. The applicant would like to have identification signage on the building which will capture the direction that cars would be traveling and to capture the front face of the building. Again, traveling off of Columbia Turnpike, this is a face you'd be seeing from a long distance away, probably 300 to 400 feet away. You know, you can see the straightaway that you have here coming around here. So as you come around this turn here, you'll be able to see the signage there. And basically, certainly just the front face of the buildings, why we got that sign there, it's slightly larger. Item number 3 is whether the requested area variance is substantial. So in essence, we're looking for 8 extra square feet on a 24 square foot sign. So it is, in theory, it's 33% what we're looking for. So this is a 32 square foot sign, whereas code allows for a maximum of 24 square foot. Just to put this in perspective, the front face of this building that you see here is 35 foot high on average by 318 foot long. That's 11,830 square foot. The increase of 8 square feet versus the 11,830 is less than 0.1% from a size perspective. So certainly if it was a lot smaller building, I mean, we could have a 2,000 square foot building here, those ratios would be well above what we're presenting here. The second sign on the westerly face of the building is 24 square foot, and the face of the west side of this building is approximately 2,500 square feet. So again, it's less than 1% of the building's square footage as far as the face that we have there. Based on that, we would not consider either of the requested variances substantial with respect to the building size. Item number 4, whether the proposed variance will have an adverse effect or impact on the physical or environmental condition in the neighborhood and/or district. As noted above and discussed in the initial presentation, we do not feel that the proposed variance will have an adverse effect or impact on the neighborhood, nor will it affect or have any negative effects on the physical or environmental condition in the neighborhood and/or district. The proposed building is being constructed in an existing industrial commercial park and in an aesthetically pleasing and well-landscaped manner. We feel that this building and related signage will only add value to the existing neighborhood. Item number 5 is whether the difficulty was self-created. And we've owned the building for a number of years, or Regeneron has, so I guess we're not going to argue that if it's self-created. We're looking to put both signs on the building and slightly increase the square footage on it. So from that standpoint, we would agree it's a self-created hardship. So certainly if there's any questions that the board has or members from the public are able to chime in, we'll do our best to address them.
Steve, are there other signs on building 85? You said this is building 20, so I'll say the existing building was 85. Are there other signs facing the same directions?
There is one buried. I mean, this building covered up the one. Basically, if you took the one off of here and put it on here, it would be a replacement of that existing sign that's there, but it's
The old existing one's behind you.
That's correct, yes.
Do you know how big that sign was? It is.
Did we ever get a measurement on that, Dave?
I did not measure it. It would be approximately the 24 square foot, I would think.
So the signage on the west side of 85, is that actually on 20 or is that on 85?
So they're all on building 20, and when we started this whole project 2 years ago, it was a building 85 addition. As the progress goes through, Regeneron names them accordingly. So they call it building 20. So in essence, it's on the addition. Both the signs that we're looking at are on the addition.
Because it doesn't look like it from that picture. I thought that the change in elevation actually was building 20 and the higher elevation was building 85. And I was curious if that included all of that square footage when you did your 25% calculation of that full face. Yeah.
So if you can see here, it's a little harder to see, Tom, but this is the existing building that's here. So this is existing building 85, and this is the addition being called building 20. So it's a little bit higher up front and then steps down a little bit. When I say up front, it's a little higher closer to the building, and then it steps down to where the roof section is.
So I think that goes to my greater question, the more relevant part of the question, is that whole facing of, that westerly facing of 85 and 20, which are attached, even though it's called a separate building. Do you know what that square footage and what percentage that is? Because it's significantly less than 25%.
So, yeah, so if you look at this building 20 addition here, is the face you're talking about this whole
Yes.
it's probably 8 times bigger than,
Right.
than what we had mentioned. So this is a small addition here. The building's only about, how wide is the building, Dave? Was that
63 feet.
63 feet wide here? So if this dimension's 63, I mean, that's probably 500 feet the width of the whole building here.
And I think my other question is that you guys have just put in the curb cuts at the end there. Is there gonna be any signage that's gonna go at the curb cut for the entrance?
No, and in essence, the entrance, if you're talking on this side of the building, which goes to Red Mill, that was an existing entrance that got kicked over about 20 feet, but there's no signage, going up there. And that's more for truck deliveries and things of that nature. The main entrance into this campus is still gonna be here where the guardhouse is.
Steve, I'd like to ask, just what is the purpose of these signs? You know, when I go through there, I see the buildings and it's pretty clear it's a Regeneron property. I mean, I don't think there's any confusion about that. I don't know. Do they need signs for some reason? Can the public access it off Discovery Drive, for example?
The public cannot, the only way the public will get into the site is coming through the guardhouse there.
Where there's another sign at the guardhouse?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, more for identification. I don't know if there's other driving factors, David, so why the one sign. Again, the one sign is buried behind here, so it was sort of matter, take that sign and push it up on the front of the building and then adding the other sign on the westerly side.
Is it a mix of ownership on the north side of Discovery Drive?
Here,
Yeah.
this is integrated liner technology, is that correct?
Integrated liner, we have a parking garage next to their property.
That's the big parking garage situated
The
over
building
here.
to the west of that?
Over here?
Yeah.
This is, yes.
And then to the west of
Taconic
that
what?
is,
I'm sorry.
Taconic bioscience.
and to the west of that is New Albany campus.
New Albany, that's correct.
So there's mixed ownership along there.
No, that's correct.
And again, the one sign is 32 square feet as opposed to 24 as required under the ordinance.
Correct.
Is that really important? I mean, you kind of argue that it's not significant. I mean, why not just leave it at 24? Is there some reason for that?
Yeah, and I think honestly, John, it's probably just for the magnitude that, you know, the size of the building and the height that it's up. You know, that was more architecturally driven as well. I think we had bounced back and forth between that. And they felt, the architect and also Regeneron felt it was important to make it bigger. And my argument on not being substantial is just that square footage of that versus that whole face of that building. It wasn't substantial, but it was something that was important for Regeneron.
I can add quickly to that. So the proportions of the building with this block wall, the 32 square foot proportionally carries the same effect as the smaller sign, since we have the aluminum extruded accent panels here, disproportionately lays out similar to this. So that's why this was increased. If this stayed at the 24 square feet, it would look much smaller proportionally to that block wall. If you can see.
So the heights are about the same, Dave, but the widths are different, so the square footage.
Correct.
I see. Thank you.
Any other questions from the board? Okay, thank you. Hearing none, thank you. What I'd like to do is ask if any members of the public here tonight wish to speak with regards to this appeal tonight. Yes, sir.
My name is David Turpin, can you hear me?
David Turpin.
Is this gonna be a lit sign?
They will not.
Is there any reason why, other than endorsement from Regeneron, the sign has to be on the building? I mean, I would think that they barbed wire around all the property, they don't want to draw more attention to themselves.
Or I would say from an identification standpoint.
Anything else, Dave?
That's all I can think of right now.
What's that?
That's all I can think of right now.
Okay, thank you. Okay, any other questions from the board? Okay, hearing none, I will entertain a motion to close the public hearing. I'll make that. Motion by Scott Scribell, do I have a second?
I'll second.
Second by John Conway, all those in favor? Aye. Aye. Oppose, abstain, motion carries 6-0, thank you.
Thank you.
Steve, you guys know the routine, you're welcome to stay or leave, your call.
I'll stay in the thank you, I think they admit that out.
I'm gonna leave, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks for calling back. Thanks, Dave.
And the public interaction on that appeal. With that, we'll move on to the next agenda item, appeal number 2020-09. The appeal of Hunter Montross of 1 Springhurst Drive, East Greenwich, New York, 12061. The applicant proposes to install a 40 square foot facade mounted sign on the southwest elevation and an 18 square foot projecting sign on the northeast elevation. The review of the proposed work will not comply with the following provisions of the town zoning law, sections 2, 3.3.2 A, B, subset 3, the maximum size shall be 24 square feet, and section 3.3.2 A02, projecting sign shall be no larger than 5 square foot per side. Therefore, the proposed action requires 2 area variances for the property located at 1 Springhurst Drive, East Greenwich, New York, tax map number 177.8-4-11.121. Within the record, we have a memo from September 11th, 2020 regarding the planning board recommendation. After some discussion from the board, the following motion was made. The planning board votes to accept the planning board members' report and provides a negative recommendation based upon planning and zoning principles. See attached report for details. Said report is enclosed, dated September 9th, 2020. There were concerns regarding this will set precedents, and other tenants here will request blade signs in addition to the monument. There will be the blade and monument signs in the same vicinity, approximately 30 feet. The blade sign with the potential of the addition of other blade signs does not meet the town's intent to raise the aesthetic quality along the 9 and 20 corridor. And the rear sign is very large and faces the rear parking, not a town or state road as required. We also have notification of zoning review action from Rensselaer County. After having carefully reviewed the information submitted as part of the subject referral, the Bureau of Economic Development and Planning has determined that the proposal does not have a major impact on county plans and that local consideration shall prevail. We do have an authorization form by Hunter Montross LLC giving permission to Saxton Signs to represent them tonight. So I'd like to invite the representative forward to the podium just to review the proposal tonight and ideally the 5 criteria for the area variance. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Pat Bonnie from Saxon Signs, representing Nick's Victoria Restaurant. I do have some layouts here that will show what the sign looks like that wasn't in the package I handed out. I do have 6 copies, I'm not sure if anyone doesn't need one here.
Yeah, the 6 members will take one, that's fine. Do you need to hold on to one? Like,
No? I have no.
is it just 1 page, Pat?
Yes.
Thank you. We'll enter that into the record as exhibit 2020-09A. Thank you.
So I'll start out with that sign. That's a sign that's gonna be on the interior of the mall. It's just 40 square foot illuminated sign, the background's opaque, and it's gonna be painted to match the building, so it's gonna blend right in. And this particular restaurant's taken up 3 spots. So it could have been divided into 3 different tenants, it would have been 24 times 3 is 72 square feet. But we had to have 1 spot, which is called a 40 square foot sign. And if you look at the photograph I gave you, it really is, it doesn't look that large, and that's big picture. Now, the second sign facing 9 and 20, they do have that pylon sign there, but that pylon sign is basically, like for, no one really looks at all the tenants driving down the road. It's like if you're going somewhere, you can verify that they're in that building, but you really, they all just blend in with one another. And they really need to have the restaurant sign there, because people know there's a restaurant in there. And that's 18 square foot sign. A 5 foot square foot sign wouldn't even sit. And that's gonna be an opaque background also. At nighttime, the only thing that's gonna light up are the letters and logo. So it won't appear to be that big. So the criteria, there will not be an undesirable change in the neighborhood or a detriment to the neighborhood, because the whole building and the sign and restaurant really helping the neighborhood out. Not any other way to let customers know where they are except for signage. If we go to the square footage allowed, it won't be big enough to be seen. And the request is substantial because without signs, no one's gonna know they're there. And there will not be an adverse effect because the same reason, number one, it's a big improvement to the neighborhood. And all the neighbors can have a nice restaurant to go through and all the other businesses. And it was not self-created because every business needs a sign that can be seen.
Thank you. With that, I'll open it for questions from the board members.
I'm just a little bit disoriented here, so if I could ask.
Sure.
The photograph, over here on, I guess the left side as I'm looking at it, is that the entrance to the plaza?
Thank you. Is that the entrance to the plaza?
No, the entrance is in front of it.
Yeah,
Springhurst
but
Drive
I
is
mean the road, does it come along the
So
side?
that's Springhurst, if you go past the left of the building and go up to 920,
Okay,
that's the back side of the plaza. And Springhurst is to your left.
okay. I've got a site plan here that is kind of confusing me now, because it looks like it's at the other end of the plaza. So this is right on the corner as you drive in?
Yes, as you drive in, it's a corner.
Okay.
The other side of the building is on 920.
Right.
This one is on the back of the building is on 920, and Springhurst is to
I'm
your
looking
left.
at this site plan that we've got. See, Springhurst is over
Hey,
here.
guys. I guess, let me just ask, because you bring up a good point, John. Pat, could you just come forward and, within our packet, we have a site plan shown here of the plaza that I think has us confused. This site plan says this is Columbia Turnpike, this is Springhurst, this would be your entryway between this building and Crisp Cannolis right here.
They're taking this area right
So it's not over here, this is incorrect.
here. Yes, that's
You're down here.
correct.
And then this wall sign faces the parking lot, which is the driveway in and out. And where this sign is gonna be facing 9 and 20,
Just stick out right
stick out right there, which is right next to the pylons somewhere over here.
here. Well, Alan's actually over here.
Okay, thank you.
So on the
Can
site
I
plan that
just
we were
set that
given,
down so that the members just, you guys can correct your site plan drawing, the site plan is correct.
basically Columbia Turnpike's marked on the other side of this structure, it should be on the other side of the structure.
The notes are.
Yeah. And Springhurst should be on the other side.
So the blade sign would actually be on your building? Right there.
The Columbia Turnpike label is actually the driveway into the plaza.
I got it.
Where it says building number 1 reference plot plan, that would be Springhurst. Yep. So this shows a 60-foot store and then a 23-foot store. Did you just take up the 60-foot? Does this use just take up the 60-foot or the 60 and
It takes up
23?
to three spaces.
It's a total of 60 linear feet.
It's 60 feet you took up.
It's
Okay,
60 by 60.
okay, thank you. And Pat, you're with the sign company, correct, representing the tenants?
Yeah.
Is there anybody here representing the property owner? No, okay. Because this is a brand new plaza, I would suspect, we also have a condition in our code that any multi-tenant plaza has all the signage designed so it's consistent throughout the plaza. So I think that was part of what came up in the planning board referral back, recommendation back to the zoning board of appeals is this starts to set precedent if we just look at this as one tenant versus all the
Well, they are
tenants.
taking up 3 spaces.
Right, but there's also 3 or 4 more tenants in that same building, correct? It's a multi-tenant
Oh,
building.
no, in the building, yeah,
Yeah.
they all have small, like, they all have small areas, like 20-foot frontages.
The pylon that is out in front on Columbia Turnpike, is that for the entire plaza or just that building,
Entire.
entire plaza?
And what's the square footage for that business's sign that's on the pylon?
Like, that's not just what we're putting
Something maybe 30 inches by 8 feet, 7 feet, looking like at the sign.
Oh, you mean it's just the signs
So
themselves?
you have the pylon,
Just
and then there's individual signs that go down
Yeah,
on that.
I would say 2 by 8.
So somewhere to late, so there's probably already a 16 square foot-ish sign that exists on the front.
Right.
Okay,
So you really can't see it driving down the road. No one's gonna know there's a restaurant there from that pylon sign.
Can I ask, is there a reason why there aren't signs on the front of the building, on the Columbia Turnpike side of the building? Is that?
No one wanted them yet.
Will the building, the trattoria, will that be accessible from Columbia Turnpike? Is there going to be a door up to?
No.
No?
Is there any signage that faces Springhurst?
No.
Where is the door to go into this place? Is it in the side in which you have the bigger sign from the parking lot? It's from that frontage for that side? So the sign's gonna be right over that front door.
Well, the proposed sign right now is not over the front door, it's kind of, it's more towards.
Centered over the whole unit.
Yeah.
It's the doorway underneath the black awning.
Yes.
Okay.
Is there any signage proposed on the glass windows? I know that's got a lot of glass. Store.
No signage.
okay, just know if the Chris Pinoli sign is on Springhurst side of that building or if it's on the parking lot entrance side?
Parking lot.
Well, Chris only has two.
Yeah, but they're not on that, windows.
So you have a kind of a 30-inch circular sign that actually, I believe, is on the entrance side and not on the
Right,
Springhurst.
it'd be on
Not
the
the
driveway.
Springhurst
I can only get one person at a time.
It faces the entrance.
That's
The
what
other
I
one faces the parking lot. You can see it from Springhurst. And that's a 5 square foot sign, but if you imagine that circular sign that they have on Route 20, 920, you wouldn't even see it.
Do you know if the sign that faces the parking lot was approved as part of the PDD approvals? And it's a planned development district, it's approved differently than most buildings.
If not.
Pat, do you know of any other blade signs on that street? I can't think of any of that size. Or,
I don't need stick out signs on top, on 920.
The only one I believe is there is Tom's Barber Shop, Tom's, just below the Elks. And I believe the Elks actually hangs off the building
Yes, it does.
in the corner.
Yeah, they do have a 4 by 8 and a 2.
gotcha.
And it's almost within sight of this.
I'm sorry, and that's within sight of this one?
Yeah.
Have you guys had any conversations with the property owner, the building owner, regarding a consistent sign design for these buildings?
He's the CEO of our company. And he knows all about the signs all for her.
George Shannon?
Yeah.
I'm confused on why we're here on a brand new building and multi-tenant plaza. I'm trying to approve sign variances on a brand new tenant versus having a consistent design theme of signs along the building face. And the planning board recommendation, I should pose this as a question, to the public hearing stool. The planning board recommendation is there's a concern over setting precedent. We approve one, we open the floodgates from all. And hence, there's a reason comprehensive zoning law says there shall be a consistent sign design theme for these multi-tenant buildings. Would you be open to talking to the building owner regarding coming back with a consistent theme for the rest of the tenants to help put this request into perspective for what the rest of the tenants may be looking for on that building?
Well, this is the largest section, so all the other ones are gonna have like
Well,
20
you say the largest, the last tenant is 75 by 60, which is even bigger. So this is the second largest tenant.
What time
It
is that?
says tenant Wildwood down at the end, 75 foot by 60.
Oh, yeah, but
So
that's all they want, they don't want any more signs.
we don't know that. We don't know that. So that's a little bit of our problem moving forward with this proposal tonight is I think we're missing some information on the overall concept of what's going on. To put it in perspective, the prior sign request variance, public hearing we just had was one sign, it's one tenant building, it's pretty simple to keep it in context of what's going on there. This is one of potentially 6 tenants in that building, of which you're only the second largest square footage, so. And with that, I'd like to have some follow-up information from the planning office, if possible, of what was discussed at the planning board meetings regarding this PDD, because it went through as a PDD, which means it doesn't have to necessarily follow the full comprehensive code, it's a full approval package. Usually everything is rolled into it. Why this wasn't rolled into it at the time, I'm not sure. Maybe a tenant driven, may not be, but again, this is a great looking project. Overall, the PDD is a great looking project. And I just want to make sure that what is approved here meets the overall design intent of that plaza. Other questions from the board members tonight while we're here?
Jeff, I have a question. I'm not sure if it should go now or in deliberation.
Now is
but I'll
best.
ask it. So my question is I'm looking at the pylon sign and there's 7 spaces. And there's only gonna be 6 tenants because of the size of the area that you're taking up. Is there a restriction, or at least that's the way it seems from what I understand here, is there a restriction from you taking 2 spaces off of that pylon sign?
More than 6 tenants, that's for both.
Well, there's, you said there was 6 on that
Pylon
sign.
sign for both buildings.
For both buildings, okay. Right, then I guess that's not a relevant question.
Still puts in perspective. Any other questions from members of the board? With that, thank you, Pat. For now, what I'd like to do is ask if any members of the public here tonight wish to speak. Actually, before I do that, I will enter into the record, I do have one public comment that was received, dated Thursday, September 17, 2020. Dear Zoning Board of Appeals, as per a variance for the Hunter Montrose project, I am in favor of the sign. We have too many businesses not operating on the turnpike, and signage that will promote businesses in town is needed as we struggle through these times. I feel that entire project improves not only the aesthetics of the town, but also the quality of life. With regard to Eric Hart of Skodak Auto, 1525 Columbia Turnpike. With that, any other members of the public here tonight wish to speak regarding this appeal? Okay. Yes, Dave.
This is a in general comment. I don't understand why we need zoning laws, because would you say that a fair amount of variance get approved over the past 5 or 6 years? So we have a person who goes around and trying to enforce the zoning laws, a code enforcer. And then all of a sudden, a person in these Greenbush, they want to have something in addition to what they were originally approved for. So like you said before, wasn't this something that was addressed in the PDD, this particular so yeah, I'm a little confused of why we even have zoning laws, or why they aren't modified so that these situations are anticipated, so that you don't waste your time, the vendor's time, whatever. So you just get my point.
I do, I'm trying to keep it on topic to this appeal tonight, and I will try. Bill, do you want to tackle it? I will do my best to tackle this, okay?
Well, this particular vendor.
No, that's okay, Dave, I'll try and answer. Every member of the public is entitled to an appeal for relief from what may or may not be burdensome requirements of the zoning code. They may have various reasons that make sense, don't make sense. It's why we have criteria that are spelled out in New York State law. We are quasi-judicial board challenged with balancing, does the benefit to the applicant outweigh the benefits to the public? Or are there no harms from an approval and relief from the restrictions or the comprehensive design standards where there wouldn't be any negative effect to the public? So that's where it is, and that's codified in state law. Department of State has great guidelines that go through the philosophy of what a zoning board of appeals is here for, why zoning laws are good, and why relief may or may not be granted. So that's the best I can do on that. If you have any other questions regarding this appeal, you're welcome at this time. If we want to have a general conversation, that can happen after the meeting.
This one in particular, I'm against this one, but the people who rented space in that building, they would have anticipated having to have some sort of signage over and above what they existed, so why did they have right now? So why wasn't that anticipated during the PDD?
I can't speak to what happened during the PDD. It's one reason I do anticipate following up with the planning board and the planning department to find out what happened during the PDD, what discussions were happened. I do not believe this exact tenant was signed during approval of the PDD. I believe this was a multi-tenant, to be determined later, approval of the building, which happens very frequently. The property owner got approval for the project and is now trying to fill those spaces with tenants. So you do hit the nail on the head though. Comprehensive zoning law is published, it's a public document, everybody knows what rules we're trying to follow. They also know that one of the rules within the rules is the ability to seek relief from those restrictions, which is why we're here tonight.
But not to belabor this, that, this tenant, like you said, was not in the works or the creation of PDD. But George Shannon was the person who built the property. Should he anticipated additional signage needed by those potential?
We're gonna ask that exact question.
And
We're gonna ask
is it because he didn't want to create a negative effect that couldn't have it done in the future?
I can't answer that on his behalf, but we'll look into that a little further as we go forward. So thank you for that. With that, I do wish to table the public hearing to secure some additional background and feedback on the overall building. We'll have the planning department or code enforcement reach out to the property owner and try and reach out and see what other plans may be for the rest of the tenants and an overall signage package, which is in the code. So with that, I will make a motion, correct, Bill, to table the public hearing. Do I have us to our meeting on October 13th? Do I have a second?
I'll second it.
Second by John Conway. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Abstained? Public hearing is tabled till October 13th. Gentlemen, you're welcome to stay for the rest of the meeting. That concludes basically our public interaction on your appeal. You're welcome to stay and listen in. You're welcome to leave, and we'll pick back up on October 13th. We'll also reach out probably through Pat if we need any information from you guys on the application, but we'll also reach out through our George for further background. So thank you for coming tonight. All right, with that, we can move on to a secret determination on appeal number 2020-08. In regards to appeal number 2020-08, Regeneron Pharmaceuticals Incorporated of 81 Columbia Turnpike, application for 2 area variances. The zoning board of appeals has considered this project under seeker and determines that this project meets the requirements for a type 2 action and no further seeker review is required. With that, we can enter into workshop and deliberations on 2020-08 Regeneron. Anybody wish to start? I will start, so I apologize. Just for clarification again, down to 2 area variances from the original notice, 3, which is okay, it's a reduction in the request. 1 for a 31.45 square foot sign on the north elevation of the building 85 addition. Second variance for a conforming sign of 24 square feet but placed on the west elevation, which does not necessarily front a public thoroughfare, although I will throw in that the road is curvilinear around that side of the building, and even though it doesn't front the building, it is visible from that direction. So, anybody wish to go second now?
Well, as I look at it, and I'm going through the criteria, I have a hard time considering this really, significant. I think it's 33%, but I think given the scale of the building, you could easily argue, as they've done, that it really is not a significant variance. My problem with the criteria is really, is there another way to accomplish this, or what exactly is trying to be accomplished here? That's where I sort of get hung up. I mean, I don't think it interferes at all with the neighborhood or anything like that. There's anything at all. It's an industrial area. So, I don't know.
Look, I thought it was laid out very well, right? OI zone. It's really bounded, I think, Steve or somebody mentioned north and west by the commercial usage in that area. It's non-lit. I think, John, to answer your question, I just think, and I don't want to speak for Regeneron, businesses just like to put their name on their buildings, right? And most people, I think, if you've been on Discovery Lane, will enter into that coming in off of Columbia Turnpike. And there are other businesses in that corridor, so it's kind of hard to miss Regeneron, but you never know.
Yeah, I suppose.
But to your point, John, it is very small in terms of square footage, right? I think it was in the applicant paperwork, 3% of the building square footage on that front face is taken up by the sign. And I thought they answered the question very well in terms of not just aesthetics, but trying to proportionally fit it on those two sides, right? 132, one being 24. Worked for me.
I agree with Scott said too, plus they had a sign already on Discovery, I think that should take that into consideration, that was there. We don't know the size, but it was as part of their kind of marking the building itself, so there's something you can say for that.
I think one of the things is that the existing Regeneron signs are significant distance from this actual building. They're all the way up to the entrances on each end. So as much as almost all of that side of Discovery is Regeneron property, it still indicates, especially because there's trucks that do come in there, that is a Regeneron building. Otherwise, it's all the way up at the entrance. And if you don't know your way around there, you're not really sure what entrance is for what. So having a sign on that specific building, I think does indicate, especially because there's trucking deliveries that come in and out of that location, that there's some value to that.
I think sometimes you forget there's more than just Regeneron in there. I thought that was a good point, Jeff, that you've got other businesses in the same area.
I think, the appeal, again, is not whether or not they can have a sign on the building, especially face. That's a prerogative. You can put a sign on every building in the town. That's code. This is just simply, can we make the one that faces Discovery a little bit bigger to fit the aesthetics and the overall scale of that building? It's one of the biggest buildings we have in the entire town. I think FedEx has a similar sign variance for size because of the size of that building, so this would be similar. The other aspect of this is the west elevation. I think Scott, you just mentioned, the majority of traffic is coming off of 9 and 20 as you come around that curve. What am I looking at? Okay, I see the Regeneron. The one that faces north is actually tucked around the face of the building. The glass actually protrudes out the face of the building, so it would be harder to see from that direction. So it makes sense. And Tom, I think you were making the point, the percentage of the west elevation doesn't even account for the entire existing building 85, which was, 6 to 8 times the size of the new addition facing west. So definitely not significant in that aspect.
And I think coming from 9 and 22, the walkway over from the parking garage, if you don't have it kind of up in the air and noticeable, that it may get lost in those various elevations as well.
Any other points? Anybody looking to make a motion tonight? All right, I will. In the matter by Regeneron Pharmaceuticals Incorporated for 2 area variances, resolution and final decision of Board of Appeals, appeal number 2020-08, Whereas an application has been filed by Regeneron Pharmaceuticals Incorporated of 81 Columbia Turnpike, Rensselaer, New York, 12144. The applicant proposes to install 131.45 square foot sign on the north elevation of the building 85 addition and the west elevation, which does not face a public road. The review of the proposed work will not comply with the following provisions of the town zoning law, sections 2, 3.3.2A, B, subset 3. The maximum size shall be 24 square feet, and the west elevation does not face a public road. And whereas the applicant has filed an application requesting 2 area variances at the property located at 81 Columbia Turnpike, East Greenbush, New York, tax map number 155-1-4.21. And whereas the Board of Appeals has duly published a notice of public hearing regarding this appeal in the record on September 11, 2020. And whereas notice of the public hearing was provided by certified mail to the owners of all property within 200 feet of the land involved in the application, to the Town Planning Board, and to the Rensselaer County Bureau of Economic Development and Planning. And whereas a public hearing was held by the Board of Appeals on Tuesday, September 22nd, 2020, to consider this appeal. And whereas the Planning Board of the Town of East Greenbush at its September 9th, 2020 meeting provided a report of the requested area variances with a recommendation. And whereas at this hearing, the applicant as well as any and all persons interested in this appeal were heard, their statements recorded, and various written material, including exhibits, if any, were entered into the record. And whereas all statements, written material, and exhibits submitted in connection with said appeal have been carefully considered. And whereas this appeal has met all the requirements of the seeker and the teacher, now therefore be it resolved that the Board of Appeals makes the following findings of fact. There will not be an undesirable change in the character of the neighborhood as the north sign is an inconsequential increase in size in comparison to the overall scale of the north elevation of the building addition, and the west sign actually does face approaching traffic on Discovery Drive, which the majority of traffic enters from off of Columbia Turnpike. 2, there is no other method available to the applicant as the signs are being sized appropriately to the scale of the building addition, as well as to provide wayfinding for visitors from the Columbia Turnpike entrance. The requested variance is not substantial as documented in the submitted report, whereas the variance is less than 0.1% on the north elevation square footage and less than 1% on the west elevation. The proposed variance will not have an adverse effect on the neighborhood as the building is located in the office industrial zoning code, or zoning district, and surrounding buildings have similar commercial signage on them. 5, the alleged difficulty is self-created, however, that shall not necessarily preclude the granting of the area variance. Resolved that the application for 2 area variances for a 31.45 square foot sign on the north elevation and a sign on the west elevation that does not face a public road be granted with no conditions. This resolution was moved by Jeff Pangburn and seconded by
Scott Strudel.
Scott Strudel, thank you, at a meeting duly held on September 22nd, 2020. Any discussion on the motion?
The only thing I thought, Jeff, is did you want to include that it's a replacement for an existing sign on the north side or not?
Yeah, I can modify the first bullet, that there will not be an undesirable change in the character of the neighborhood. And I also will add in as the north sign replaces a pre-existing sign on that north elevation. Thank you, Tom. Any other discussion? Hearing none, the vote was taken as follows. John Conway,
Yes.
Matt Ostergaard,
Yes.
Tom Hickey,
Yes.
Jeff Pangburn, yes. Bob Stewart III,
Yes.
Scott Scrivell.
Yes.
Motion carries 6-0. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Steve.
Care, Steve.
All right, with that, we already mentioned, next meeting is October 13th, 2020. We do have 2 other appeals on the agenda that night. Coincidentally, 2 area variances for signage on both. One immediately next door, actually, to Nick's, what's the name of that? Trattoria, thank you, which is the big red dog house that was approved for doggy daycare last year. And another at 597 Columbia Turnpike, which is TCJ Troy Road, 2 area variances.
That's the Verizon store.
The Verizon store, which is under construction, currently replacing the old Pizza Hut building as a rehab. But, we then have approval of minutes, Allison, September 8th. Everybody, do I have a motion to accept the minutes of September 8th?
I'll make a motion.
Motion by Matt Ostagai, do I have a second?
I'll second.
Second by Bob Stewart III. Do I have, all in favor? Aye. Oppose, abstain, motion carries 6-0, thank you. With that, any other questions from board members?
No.
Okay, with that, we will adjourn the meeting tonight, thank you.